Hey folks, we're here for a little follow-up interview with Tiffany Michelle. Some of the folks on the Poker Road forums had a few specific questions for you they wanted me to ask. And of course that's revolving around, we're here at the WSOP final table, and the Road 2 you figured in prominently, coming in the final few tables there, with some remarkable coverage, I guess, on ESPN revolving around French fries, hand gestures, and, you know, general attitudes here, there, and the others. So they asked me to ask you a few very specific questions, and my point was, I've always been very open and honest about it, and I thought I would give you a chance to answer that live on video, and go with that.
Hit me with it.
Okay. Now the first one comes from Bunny Girl.
Okay.
We're going to use the online name.
Hi, Bunny Girl.
Bunny asked, she's a female poker player, and she said that she found it really difficult when you were acting like that with the guy. She thought it may have set back women trying to get respect in poker, because she thought that the attitude and everything that came off was really aggressive and kind of mean-spirited. How would you answer something like that?
Well, I would definitely say I definitely have an aggressive style. You know, I've said it time and time again that I think it does take a certain toughness when you're sitting down playing in a male-dominated field. You know, a lot of the top players, like Annie Duke and like Jennifer Harmon, aren't the most sweetest, girly, friendly women at the table, and that doesn't mean that they're disrespectful or rude, but for the most part, they're not there to befriend you and flirt and be your pal. You know, they're there to take your chips, and so I think people just have to remember in the context, I do have an aggressive game. You know, unfortunately, you don't get to see my very sassy, joking personality. I don't have this huge head about my game. You know, I said something about like, oh, some of us are here all the time. It was completely a joke, because obviously I was kind of making fun of the situation that we were all in this insane, you know, deep run that none of us had ever been there before. You know, also Craig Marquis was harassing me and being like, oh, you think you're so good. And that's the other thing. People don't see, you know, the ways that people harass me, and I have to fight back. You know what I mean? I'm not going to just sit there and let people beat up on me. Craig started talking a lot of smack, being like, oh, well, you think you're good? And I made some kind of comment saying, well, yeah, that's how I got here. You know, again, and then I almost spit out my water, which you don't see because I'm kind of laughing and making fun of myself. So I do have an aggressive game, you know, but again, I just hope people keep in mind the context that it is a poker game, it is a competition. You do want the other people to fail, you do want to take their chips, and I've never been the girl to sit down at the table and give off an image where guys can think that they can beat up on me or pick on me. I don't want to come across as weak, so lots of times I come across very aggressively. I'm not afraid to fight it out with the boys. And all in all, you know, if a guy was sitting there bantering back and forth, which happens all the time, nobody would say anything. It would just be like, whatever, it's boys playing poker. But because I'm not afraid to give it back, you know, of course I've come under some scrutiny, and that's just the game. You know, I'm a girl playing a man's game. I don't plan to make a lot of friends. I don't plan to make a lot of fans, and you know, overall, it's going to be tough, but I'm sorry if any women were offended by that, but, you know, I'm a tough chick. I'm a tough chick who plays an aggressive game of poker, and I can guarantee you that I was not rude, nor did I personally attack any player that I sat down with.
Now, we've read about that in some of the responses on there. Now, the one thing that's kind of universally cocked an eyebrow, at least, would be calling the clock in a hand that you weren't in, and that was a rather large pot for the guys. What's your response on that?
Well, just the behind-the-scenes footage, I don't know if most people realized or not. They edit, obviously, the World Series of Poker, so they don't show you that Paul C took about 15 minutes inside there. You know, everyone thinks that because TV time, it was just a few minutes later. It was about 15 minutes. I kept looking back at the clock, I wasn't in the best chip position there. And the problem was that if I had thought Paul was anywhere near close to making a decision, I would have given him plenty of time. But he kept going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. 15 minutes had passed by, and he was consistently taking a long time to make decisions, kind of getting up, going to the rail, talking to the fans, being a little bit Hollywood in my opinion. So, you know, the clock rule is there for a reason, and I hate that I've gotten so much hate about it, but there's a reason to call the clock, and ultimately, after about 15 minutes, it's my tournament life too. I'm playing for $9 million. It wasn't a rude thing that I did, and I even said, look, honey, I'm getting short. Nothing against you personally, but I would like to win here as well. So that's, you know, the real story behind it, is that if anyone was actually there live, they could have counted on a time watch, but a lot of people are making judgments on me making that call without knowing how long they actually took to decide.
Now, on the short comment, a lot of people said you got 50 big blinds. You you're really not short compared to some other people on the table. Was it really just that it was just annoying the hell out of you and you wanted to get on with the game, or
well,
was it
he
really
consistently was taking a long time to decide, and that kind of was the same thing that I was joking Craig Marquis about, was that he was taking a long time. So ultimately, yes, I get that we have to make decisions, but really, Paul in that moment was just going back and forth. It was not apparent that he was anywhere near making a decision. So 50 big blinds. I'm sorry, I did not have a comfortable chip lead there. You know, it was coming to the end of the level, blind level. We were about to go up. And so, I mean, at what point do you call the clock is what I would ask, you know, the viewers. How long? 30 minutes, 40 minutes? I get that I wasn't in the hand, but at what point do you exercise, you know, that opportunity? So I didn't have a comfortable chip lead, I'm sorry. And ultimately, you know, the blinds were going to be going up. So at some point, it's like, okay, man, you've got to make a choice here. And in my opinion, it wasn't very close to that. So, you know, the clock's there for a reason.
Okay. If you had to do it again, would you call the clock on him again?
That's a good question. I mean, in that moment, that was the right decision for me and the right decision for my game. Yeah, and I obviously can't say just because of people, I can't live my life based on what other people are going to think or on other people's reactions, specifically on other people's ignorance, because a lot of people didn't know what actually transpired. They weren't playing with Paul Snead. They hadn't been there for hours as they sat next to him, seeing how he played or seeing how long he deliberated. They didn't know in that moment how long it took to decide. So I made the right choice for me in that moment. I don't make a habit of calling the clock in my game, but again, I think the clock is there for a reason. So I would ask any of the critics and viewers, when do you call the clock? So I'll leave it at that.
All right. Now, the other odd bit, and it's kind of a funny way to phrase it, so you can feel free to fire back as you like.
Okay.
But people have asked, are you trying to be the female Phil Hellmuth?
No. No, I love Phil. You know, if I could ever have a record like his, okay, bring it on. I mean, he's one of the best players in the world. Again, I am fairly aggressive. I'm fairly confident about my game. And I feel like I'm the first chick player like me that's come along. So I feel like I'm going to come under a lot of scrutiny. Again, I have never personally attacked a single player I've sat with. All in good fun and within the game and good competition. I'll jab people. You know, I said something to Dragomir in very good fun, being like, "Hey, buddy, don't be a sissy" or something like that. Again, I did not personally attack him. I was not personally being rude. I didn't name call anybody. Honestly, there was a couple beats that I put on people. You didn't see me jumping up and down, celebrating and rubbing in their face. For the most part, I'm really quiet. I'm really respectful at the table. But I am sassy. I do joke around. You know, I don't think I'm Phil Hellmuth, but I get that when you're a girl and when you're loud and aggressive and sassy, you know, I'm sorry if people would prefer me to sit there and be a sweet little angel. That's not how I play my game.
I don't think anybody's expecting to be a sweet little angel at any point. The one other thing that ties into that is when you were down to almost being the last woman standing, you were going over to other tables, you were kind of rooting against the other people. Now, on one hand, we think, yeah, I want to last longer in the tournament. On the other, some of the gals, in kind of the spirit of women sticking together, thought you would be rooting for more women to make it and more people to go on.
Gosh, this is a hot topic. Listen, in poker, you want to win. You want to be the last player. So no, I'm actually not rooting for other people to do well. I want to win the game. And I think that if you're going into poker, I just don't know how people forget this. You want to beat everyone. You want to take their chips. I understand, and I have a healthy sense of competition in the sense that I want to win. I want to advance. You cannot tell me that there's a single player at the final table that when someone gets knocked out isn't excited inside because they advanced. They may not necessarily outwardly express that, but that's part of the game. You're excited when someone else gets knocked out. I am sorry. That is good for me. With that said, I was not rooting for other women to fail. I was not rooting for other women to get knocked out. Yes, I was interested in how other females were doing because, if anything, my friendship with Maria Ho and seeing how she did last year, I know how exciting it is to have that title of being the last woman standing. So I'm not going to lie and say that that wasn't something that I wanted. That was a goal for me. So I apologize if any women thought that I was rooting against them. I was curious as to the hands, though, knowing that we're getting down and going and seeing somebody get knocked out. In retrospect, maybe I shouldn't have outwardly been as excited as I was, but from a purely selfish standpoint, to be the last woman standing was a title that I really wanted. That was a goal that I had for myself, and to accomplishment, unfortunately, other people had to fail for me to get there. But at the same time, at this final table, everyone else is going to have to fail for one person to get there, and you want to win. So maybe I shouldn't have been as expressive about it as I was. No offense to the women, but when I sit down to play poker, I want to be the last person standing, and I want to win.
As I like to say, I want everyone to do well and finish one position below me.
There you go.
That's about all it goes. Now, that's really about it. Thank you for answering the tough questions. We really appreciate you taking the time to get back on that. And thanks again for sitting down with Ivey.
More love, less haterade.
There we go.